Hey friends, what day is it? Wednesday? Um, Sorry, all the days are streaming into one now. Anyways, today I wanted to talk to you guys about one thing that that a lot of parents go through. Well, every parent actually goes through, and something that I myself, being a mom of three, always had trouble with and always dreaded. And that is the 4 month sleep regression. So there are many sleep regressions. There's one at 4 months, there is one at between 5 and 7 months, and then there's also one around 12 months. And you can even say that there's ones after that as well. But these are the main ones and the biggest ones. And the 4 month one is probably the biggest one, and with it comes many, many changes for your baby and for you as parents. So I just wanted to talk about this today because I feel like it's really important, and it's one that I see a lot of questions around, and a lot of needed help around. So I wanted to address it today. So let's get into it. So it's called a sleep regression, but really it actually isn't a regression. It's actually a permanent change what your baby is going through. And I say this because their brain is going through permanent changes. Um, and what I mean by that is that they're learning how to develop their circadian rhythm. They're learning how to transition from sleep cycles, and they're learning how to put themselves to sleep. So, in other words, they're learning how to sleep like an adult. Their sleep is much more like an adult come the 4 month sleep regression. And I just want to mention one thing first before I go forward any more quickly, is that just because it's called a 4 month sleep regression does not mean it can't happen earlier or later. The 4 month sleep regression can happen anywhere between the ages of 3 and 5 months. So just keep that in mind. Your baby might not be going through this right at 4 months. It might be maybe at 3 months, like my son. He started going through it at 3 months. And it may be later on, maybe around 5 months. But usually it's around that timeline. So yeah, so these are permanent changes for them, and very hard for parent and child because it's very different. Their sleep is completely different, and it's like, okay, what do I do here? Because this is extremely hard. Um, so the sleep habits at this age become more like an adult's. And so what you want to do is you want to start helping them with this, and you don't want to like stop this from happening. This is normal, and it's okay for this to happen. Um, also another thing I hear around this age is catnapping, which is a part of the sleep regression. Part of the sleep regression is frequent night waking and catnapping. So it's completely normal, and it's even expected for that to start happening. So try not to get too worked up about the cat naps and the frequent night waking. It won't last forever. It's all part of this regression, and it will go away eventually. So how do we handle this? How do we deal with this 4 month sleep regression? What do we do so we can keep moving forward, and we're not like struggling with our baby and like getting so frustrated and angry? And first of all I can say is just remember, this is very important. And I really wish I had someone telling me this when all of my kids, especially my son, because he was the reason I became a sleep consultant. Um, it was very hard for me to accept that this was normal because I didn't think it was. I thought he's not getting enough sleep. He's not being going to be able to grow and learn and develop, and everything's not right, and I was just in a mess because of this. And yes, your baby will be losing a bit of sleep, and they will be tired and irritated, and that is normal. So what we want to do is we want to take that, and we want to make it so that they can get enough sleep. It will take time, patience, and consistency, but if you stick with it, it will happen. Just give it time. That's one thing, and don't be hard on yourself, because that's what a lot of us do. A lot of us think we're doing something wrong, and we're not. So the first thing I wanted to say was to understand that this won't last forever. This is age appropriate. It doesn't last forever. Sleep regressions typically last anywhere between 12 and 6 weeks. So it does end eventually. Some last longer than others, some are really short. It all depends on the baby, and yeah, and what they're going through. So just remember and always keep in the back of your mind that this will not last forever. This will end eventually. Just hang in there. It's very frustrating, but make sure you're taking time to yourself. You're getting time to relax and let go of all the frustration and anything that you're feeling at that time. It's very, very important to take time for yourself during this time so that you are not burnt out trying to deal with your baby and this regression, which can be hard because you're both missing out on sleep during this time, but is very important. So just keep that in mind. Understand it won't last forever, and make sure to take time to yourself so that you're at your best during this. Get help where you need it. It's very important. So um, I don't know. A lot of parents, usually this is around the time when they start to see a sleep consultant or they start to think they need a sleep plan or a sleep training. And I highly recommend doing that from birth. But if you haven't yet and you're in the 4 month sleep regression and you're like, okay, I need help. I need to know what to do here. I need a sleep plan. I need to sleep train. Then by all means do it. There is never a time when you shouldn't be sleep training unless your child is sick. That is one thing that usually we put sleep training on hold for. But other than that, I would say that, yeah, you can sleep train through a regression, and that is actually a good time to do it. It might be a little bit harder during that time, but you're setting up good sleep habits for them during that time and then for after. So by all means, if you want to start during the regression, go ahead. It might be a little bit harder, but it's still doable. So make sure that you get a sleep plan in place, get a sleep consultant if you need to. Um, I myself will be certified in the next few weeks here. So if you're thinking of one, you can look here. So yeah, make sure if you do want to do a sleep plan, you can. And make sure that you're using a method that works well for you and your baby and is one that works well overall for their temperament and everything like that. So a sleep plan is very important, especially because when we hit the regressions, uh, these kind of sleep plans can really help with that. So, and the third thing I wanted to say, and the last thing, is that if you do have a sleep plan or if you're just starting one, make sure to stick with it. This sleep regression is a time when a lot of parents are like, I give up, I give in, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get this kid to sleep. But the thing about that is you're creating more habits that are going to be harder to break later on down the road because the older the baby gets, the harder it is to break their habits. The more difficult and the more longer it usually takes, unless you're doing cried out extinction method, which usually typically only takes about 3 days. But it's not really something I teach because I just, the other methods I've used have worked. So I don't really need to go to that level. That's usually what parents do when they're desperate and nothing else has worked, and then they'll go to cried out extinction method. So yeah, you just have to stick with your plan. As hard as it might be during this time, make sure you're putting your baby down, awake, ready for sleep, but awake. There should be no question in your mind that your baby's awake when you're laying them down. It is very important that you do not create other sleep habits during this time. It will just make life harder for you and your baby. Very confusing for them, because they either if they've already worked to be an independent sleeper, then you're creating sleep habits, and then that's very confusing for them. So you just want to stick with the plan, stick with what you need to do, and yeah, just keep moving forward with what you're doing. As hard as it may be during this time, you just need to stick with it, stay consistent. Consistency is key to sleep training. A lot of parents will they'll not use a sleep habit one night and then one night they're tired, so they give in, and that's very, very confusing for a baby. If you're not consistent, it's going to take longer, and it's going to be very confusing for your baby. So yeah, consistency is very much key here. So yeah, stick with your plan, do what you need to do to get past this regression. Remember, it's not going to last forever, and just keep doing and pushing forward with your sleep plan, with everything that you've been doing. If you haven't been doing something yet, start now. And yeah, and just know that this will end. I know that's really hard, but it will end. And don't get too down on yourself about it. It's a normal part of development for a child that age. So yeah, that's what I have to say today. If you guys like this content and you want more like it, I have a group called Educated and Empowered Truth Seeking Mamas. Over there, I mainly focus on sleep training for your babies, but I also talk about other things that most won't talk about, and that includes informed choice concerning vaccines and also perinatal mental health. So if any of those things interest you, I'd love to have you in my group. But that's it for me for now. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.